Hello, welcome to this podcast. I don't know the number anymore. I've lost track. Five, six of the Akashic Love Field. I'm Jen Dishin. Here we talk about all things spiritual, soulful, philosophy, just the aspects of life, where nothing is off the table because this is our human experience, is to be vulnerable, to be open, to come into touch with not just our bodies and our human experience, but to change the way we often translate or explain things to ourselves about what's happening, right? Like we want to know what's happening, what does it mean, etc. And the Akashic Love Field that I'm a channel for is a field of immense wisdom and brilliance and allowance. It's a place where we get to be who we are. So we don't have to constantly pretend to be something else, constantly pretend to fit in. Right now, we're going through enormous change, right? So many things are, it's like the domino effect of change. Something happens, something crumbles, people stop behaving the way we expect them to behave. Uh, and we are dumbfounded by why is this happening? Why is this person not doing what I want? And we often revert to typical behaviors, which is control. How can I control this person? How can I control the situation? Because I wanted to get back in its box. Now, we might not realize we're doing this, right? We might just think we might just be responding and reacting and all of those things, like feeling like, oh my God, I'm threatened here. So this is sort of a continuation of part two of the shape of safety, where I talked about last week, that when our safety is threatened, we do everything to regain our safety. And we do it in the external world because we believe our safety comes from the external world. Somebody else is guaranteeing our passage, giving us safety. We even have a lot of traditional, is it worship or faith? We put our faith in a person, in a thing, in an institution that somehow guarantees that they will give us safe passage. And a lot of our language and our behavior is about this. Like, if I pray to God, if I, go to church, if I sort of do the right thing on what we might think is a spiritual level, on a faith level or hope level or trust. I trust that, the right thing's going to happen because so-and-so is going to do this. And it's completely natural, normal that we do that because this is how we've been conditioned for thousands of years to obey, right? We're in a system. The patriarchal system is a system of obedience. It calls us to obedience, and it calls us to limit our ability to celebrate ourselves or be individuals. It wants us to conform. So I want to talk about what happened to me 15 or so years ago when I went through my dark night of the soul. So what had happened was I was living my life, but I was always very different from everyone else. I never felt like I was part of the norm. I couldn't figure out how to be part of the norm. And in fact, I didn't really want to be part of it on one level because I didn't believe in it. But another part of me was like, yeah, I really want to be like everyone else. We have this idea that if we're like everyone else and we present an idea, we will be acceptable. So, for example, women often talk about the idea of when they are in corporate, that they are talked down to and are treated differently from a man. So maybe they give an idea and then their boss steals it and talks about it, or they try to speak up and people belittle them. So that entry point, of course, it feels real. So I'm not denying the validity of that that it feels real because we are experiencing it, because this is how people behave. So it feels like a slippery slope, right? You're trying to prove I am worthy of this position, and, I want the respect. I want you to see me as an equal, not to keep putting me down. And it's this, but what do I do? I'm a woman. These are the only ways open to me. So that was kind of my experience as this person, Jen, trying to be non-conforming, but at the same time using the framework of conformation to travel into. Yes, I need people to approve of me. I need to be liked. I need to prove, I need the world to prove to me that somehow I'm valuable, that I have something to offer. So I'm looking outside of myself in this container that's been created by humans, by societies, by systems that want people to feel less than. So as a woman, I can feel less than a man in how I'm treated. And then we could even take it further. Certain men who don't fit the criteria, maybe they're not, uh, uh, they don't speak loudly, or they don't try to take over the room. Maybe they feel inferior, or maybe they're told they're inferior, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I don't need to go into all the explanations of why it is like it is. This is how it is because we are all working in a container that requires a certain behavior from us depending who we are. So it's a hierarchical system that basically rewards and punishes. So, oh, okay, you're a woman, 3 steps back. Oh, you're an artist or creative, or your brain doesn't work, in the linear way. Okay, 10 steps back. You had this experience, 15 steps back. So we kind of like, what we have left are the people that have been conditioned to believe that whatever they want, they can have. So, for example, I saw, and this has happened numerous times, a woman raped by somebody, a college, in college, some guy rapes her, and then she has this awful experience. Of course, it's terrible. But then in the judgment, when she goes to court, and now she's, it's in a very uncomfortable thing to have to bring that into court, then the judge goes, well, you know, this man has so much potential because he's at college and he's studying this and that. So we can't really punish him because he has potential. So we don't really care what happens to you, the woman who's had this experience, you know, who cares about you? We don't care about your potential. It's basically saying you're only here to be used. So you're not that interesting. But the man who has the potential of this career as a scientist or something or other, blah, 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 he must be protected. And this just reveals the shape of how we have operated. That's a particular instance, a particular lens, but it applies across the board to so many things, right? So if you think about this is the framework we're working in, so we're at a disadvantage when we don't fit the ideal, right? So that was me battling against trying to climb up that mountain. Somebody's going to finally see me as somebody worthy. I'm going to keep climbing the mountain. I'm going to, every time I hit rock bottom, I get back at the bottom. I'm going to get up on that bicycle. I'm going to climb. I'm going to find a rope. I'm going to find a way to drag myself up the top to get there. And I did this over and over again because I was looking at people outside me to finally say, Jen, you're amazing, or Jen, you're worthy, or Jen, you have something to offer that is valuable to others. I was looking outside, but not only was I looking outside for validation, I didn't believe people when they told me I was valuable. So it was a conundrum, right? And insolvable conundrum because I wanted the the validation from others, but when they validated me, I didn't believe them. And on top of it, I felt restricted because I was operating from a place that wasn't me. I wasn't being myself in order to get these things that I said I wanted. And of course I wasn't, because as myself, as my true self, as the self that wishes to express, I don't care about getting the approval of others. I want my relationship to improve with the universe, with my soul, with my own ability to express. So I don't really want to be paying a lot of attention to people outside of me unless they have achieved something that I want and that they are similar in some way to me. So there's some criteria that they're operating outside of that field I was talking about, the restrictive field that I was trying to prove myself in, refusing to accept what I was given in. If there was somebody that was similar to me, and I looked at them and I said, well, how did they do? What did they do, right? Instead of trying to copy the people or emulate the people who I thought knew what they were doing, even though I didn't resonate with it, I would have been better off looking at somebody who actually I did resonate with in the sense of, oh, they're following their own instincts. They're doing things that feel good to them, regardless of the fact that their family or their friends or whatever, their teachers are telling them, you suck, you're useless, right? So that would have been a better criteria for me to emulate or follow or get guidance from. But most of the time, I was kind of stuck in this place where I was wanting to get approval and guidance from people who were not able to operate the way I needed to operate. Hopefully, this makes sense. Sometimes when I'm channeling, I have no idea what's going to come through. So we just have to trust that it all makes absolute sense and lands in the way that it does. So I shouldn't even ask if it makes sense. Because I have to trust that if it doesn't, you will tell me that this is nonsense. And that's okay too, right? It's okay if it's nonsense to you. But to get back to the story. So what happened? It started to build up inside of me because it was a lot of control. I was controlling myself. I wasn't even allowing myself to really feel what I felt, to express what I felt, except through extreme frustration. So I would get really mad and then yell or do something like that because it would just build up inside me and explode. And what happens when we get so angry and we yell? Nobody can hear us. In fact, we push people away because they're like, wow, this person's crazy, right? They're yelling. Why? Like they've acted like everything was fine until now. So I got to this place that they call the dark night of the soul, where everything, the light within me just died and just went very dark. So, I could carry on, carry on, carry on until I couldn't carry on anymore. It was the end, right? The end of my life in that way. And it was a very dark place there. But the thing that I've discovered, and you might have heard this story from me before, the thing I discovered in the darkest place was that when you're in the darkest place, when you're in the place of deep need to surrender because you just can't pretend anymore. There was no room inside of me to pretend or to act as if things were normal or okay, or I could get past this. There was nothing. All I had was darkness. All I had was my despair and my pain. And so the beauty of that was that I couldn't put on an act anymore. I just had to let go. I just had to let this part of me go. The part of me that needed that approval, that needed the proof from the external and go, okay, that's not working. I've turned myself inside out to do all those things. It's not working. It hasn't worked. There's no more left. And just sink down into that. The part that I was so terrified of, the nothing inside me, that while intellectually I believed in, something greater, inside of myself, I didn't. I didn't accept that there was something there. And this fall into despair, this letting go of trying to like sort of hold a shape that wasn't me, hold on to things that weren't me, just allowed me to surrender myself in a whole new way. It wasn't pretty. It didn't feel good, except for, like I said, the relief of not having to pretend anymore. This is the place we are in now. Many of us are going through this experience. I count myself as privileged because I've gone through these periods of deep letting go of what has been real multiple times. It's given me the awareness that what is real is who I am internally and what I create internally. The part of ourselves that has to be nurtured and held. What I started doing, and people sometimes ask me, well, how did you deal with all of that? And once I decided, okay, I'm staying here, like I'm not just going to disappear and die, and I am choosing life. Once I decided I was choosing life, then I knew that what I had done before would no longer work for me because that had brought me to my knees and beyond. And I didn't want to go there. So I knew, right? My experience of being in total despair, of totally losing any interest in battling or being alive or any of those things, gave me the wisdom to go, okay, that work that I did to try to make myself like other people, not working. Didn't work. It hasn't worked. I can't go back and repeat it, like, lie in bed for a few months, then wake up and just go back to who I was. That just wasn't an option. And that gave me freedom, right? Because it gave me that sense of safety, that awareness. Oh, my behavior of trying to do what other people needed to me or what I assumed they needed. I don't even know if they needed it. I was assuming that I needed to behave based on my own mental constructs. This is what I made it mean. This is what it had to look like. And I had to contort myself to become that in order to be acceptable and all of those things. And then once I did that, I could ride like crazy and catch up with everyone else and be like everyone else and, happily ever after. And that deep dive, that complete break in my experience made me take other choices. I was forced into it. And I knew, part of me knew, the old way doesn't work. So when I was given the opportunity, I started hearing voices. I'd forgotten I used to hear voices in the past, and I stopped listening to all of that because I kept so focused on proving I could do this thing. I could contort myself into this, idealized version of myself and somehow win. And then when that got the better of me, when that brought me to my knees, that opened my way, my path. And I was like, yeah, I can hear voices again, like people are talking to me, something. And the voice that told me that my life wasn't over, that this was just the beginning, and that I needed to follow the signs, which I did. And that really moved me very rapidly to whole new experiences, to doing things in different ways, seeing things in new ways. People would ask me, that knew me from before, what happened to you? You're so different. You seem so different, so much younger, more lively. And yes, I had my life force had started to come back to me because I was no longer trying to be a robot, right? A copier of other people, other things. So this is what's happening to us on a massive level, on a universal level. All the systems that have been working and operating in order to keep us in that bubble of a certain kind of leadership, a certain kind of behavior, this idea that by being a good person, and everyone had their own idea, but it was very restrictive about what it meant to be a good person, that we would be saved, right? That we would I don't know, feel the touch of God within us or get the things we wanted or whatever. And some people think if you behave well in life, that when you die, you get rewarded, all those things. Um, but that's the trap we've been in, this idea that if we obey these behaviors that are scripted through often the patriarchy. I want to be careful here because when I say patriarchy, when I talk about this dominant, what we call, humans call masculinity, that it isn't about whether you're a male or female. So we all carry uh, genetic male female genes. We all carry the aspects. I'm going to translate it for you. It's not what we call male female. It is really the initiation of energy or ideas that come into us where we are filled with ideas through our imagination. Uh, we feel the emotion. We are filled with love, with the idea of behaving or releasing certain ideas, and then we want to make it real, right? So we are filled with this idea, and then to make it real, that's the masculine and feminine. So filled with the idea is the female. It's the sleeping seed that is infused with imagination, idea, desire. And then when the seed drops into the earth, it and at the right time, watered, action happens, right? So it's kind of like a lever that opens, okay? Or the flower, begins to grow and come alive. That's the masculine aspect of bringing something into form, making it real, right? So that's the the magic of what we work with and live in that has not been explained to us. It's been held as a mystery that we don't know. Somebody else decides. Some guy in a chair up in the sky will tell us, we're a bad person, we're a good person, and arbitrarily choose who's going to get rewards or based on our good behavior, we get rewards, which, of course, in our lives, we see people behaving very badly that seem to be very well rewarded. And how does that make any sense? We see people doing all the right things, struggling, and they never go anywhere, don't seem to have any rewards. How does that make sense, given the story we've been told about how things work? When you understand that each of us has the capacity to be filled with ideas that come through love, that we then translate into I need to control, or we translate into that receiving. I receive this download, I receive this information, I'm turned on, and now I want to express it out in the world, right? That's the masculine, feminine, masculine, I should say. It's the feminine first, masculine second in our human language. So this opening and sharing of who we are, that's the expression of our connection between soul and human, right? The desire to express. When we are trying to control others, so in other words, we're telling them what to do, we're using fear to control, we're yelling, we're punishing, we're blaming and shaming. So we see a lot of that going on in the world right now. Somebody doesn't like someone, so they use mockery, they encourage people to say things almost like it's a sort of chant that spreads. Here's something. I want to control people. I need people to believe a certain thing because it feels good to me, because it keeps me safe. So I'm just going to spread this sort of chant out there. It's so easy for us to fall for chants, to fall for phrases. There's often propaganda that's based on fear, that's based on control. So, what we imagine keeps us safe is when we do what others do, when we copy them, when we say it, because we are obedient, right? We have been formed over thousands of years to be obedient. That means when we get an instruction, we follow it because we fall in line, we do what others do, and then we grumble behind everyone's backs, we gossip, we do all those things because we're dissatisfied. Why did I do that thing? The greater awareness we have of this dropping in of soul, of imagination, right? So when we get past the numbness, so in my case, what I experienced was numbness. I got to a place where I couldn't bring myself to behave like I had, like trying to be like others, trying to be very obedient and win. That created numbness. I felt nothing, right? I just, at some point, I just didn't care anymore. And that numbness was expanded when I went into deep depression. That's what numbness is. It's depression. It's all those things, right? Although not all depression comes from numbness, numbness will most likely translate into some form of depression. When we get numb, we're just following, right? We're too tired. People have pushed back on us. We don't know how to fight back. We don't know how to stand up for ourselves. So we just join groups that chant things or say things with no idea what is behind it. What's the actual story? Many of us don't do our own research. We just accept whatever we're given. Again, more obedience, response and behavior. Allowing yourself to soften the numbness, to allow it to release, is when you let this part of yourself drop in. The part of yourself that creates the imagination, the part that is blooming from a place of love, from your heart. When we are in times like the times we're experiencing now, which challenge our safety and challenge our beliefs and everything that's happened. Like, why aren't people behaving the way they're supposed to? Why aren't people doing what they normally do? People are saying those things. Why isn't this stuff making sense, right? Instead of going into that place of, let me push back and attack that person, try to gang up against them, or that system, take time to drop in. What are you feeling? What's coming into your system? What is flowing into you that wants space, that needs space? What is true, right? What is true within you that wants to be felt, even if it's in the tiniest way? Nurturing that little drop in, that seed, that softening of the heart, of the womb, of the settling in inside of you, seeding inside of you, allowing that to drop in and nurturing that instead of putting all your attention on what other people are doing around you. Unless they're doing it to you and you need to set a boundary of some kind, you need to pull away from things, you need to declare something, not put up with it. It's not a battle in the way we've been told, because that's a lot of effort, a lot of work that takes us out of ourselves, right? We want to be within ourselves. I know that's the most powerful place I can be. The Akashic Love Field shares that this is the most powerful place any of us can be, because this is where our truth is, right? The truth is here. And when we're checking in, we can go, you know what? I'm not going to give attention or my voice or my response to all the stuff outside me, even though a part of me, the obedient part, wants to jump up and go, oh yeah, let them know I'm one of them. And just go, no, let me see what's true for me. What are the things that would make me feel more safe, make me feel more connected right now? And that will be the taking of the time to do something, possibly something with movement like dance or movement of the hand like art or singing or taking a walk in nature. What wants to have more space inside of you, inside of your heart? Because when the world outside is in chaos, the beautiful thing is they don't have time to look at all of us and see what we're doing. So we can go internally. There's no one paying attention to us. So let us pay attention to ourselves and withdraw all of those things we've given to uphold a system that just wants us to be obedient so that they can have more power, that we can feel like we are caught in a shape that is not true. The most beautiful thing about doing this, dropping into yourself, however you find the way to do it, doing it from your truth, not to control others, not to control yourself, but to engage with who you are, to activate who you are, to activate the creator within you, even if it's just in the smallest ways. This is where power is. This is where beauty is. This is where safety lies. Inside us. When we meet those places and we allow that thing to bloom inside us until it drops into the earth and begins to seed, until we are ready to bring it into reality. When it becomes real inside of us, that seeding, that awareness, sort of like being pregnant, right? You know something is growing inside of you and it becomes your world and your secret and your focus. Like this beautiful thing is growing inside of me. And I'm nurturing it and I'm caring for it and I'm paying attention to it. And when it's ready, it'll come forward when I'm ready, maybe even before I think I'm ready. When you're pregnant and you actually have a baby growing inside of you, in some ways it's a wondrous thing, right? You feel your body changing. In other ways, it's kind of like, wow, this thing growing inside of me is is changing me. It's forcing me to sleep. I can't remember things. And then there's also a part like, I don't know what's going to happen when I have this baby. And when the baby is born and you go through the birth process and it comes out and you're like, oh my God, I have this little child. It's so beautiful. And at the same time, it's really scary. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to, take care of it. And oh, I have this child now that I have to remember and take care of and do all these things for. And I have to deal with my old stories coming up, and I have to remember how I want to express love now through this. It's the most incredible experience, but it's also scary and hugely growthful in the sense that you are forced to grow through the experience. And it's not all sunshine and roses, right? It's not all sunshine and roses. It's life. It's messy. It's dirty. It's uncomfortable. It's difficult. It's challenging. And you have the means to bring more life in it by your choices, by your actions, right? By what you're inspired by and how you bring it forth and birth it into the world. I'm going to stop here and just remind you, you can find me on Substack under my name, Substack Jen Duchenne, the Akashic Love Field. I do writings there. I also offer art medicine workshops, if that's something you're interested in, and Akashic sessions, all geared and focused to expanding the soul, the presence of your truth and being and light, moving into the wonder of being here in this incredible time. I'll see you next time.